Welcome to the webinar, The Candidate Journey Isn't Linear, How to Craft Content Accordingly. A few good housekeeping tips before we get started. The audio is streaming over the web, so there is no dial-in, so make sure your speakers are turned on and turned up. All lines are muted to avoid background noise, and please submit questions in the Q&A tab on the lower left-hand corner of your screen. We'll be getting to questions at the end of the webinar. And for all you social butterflies out there, we'll be live tweeting using the hashtag recruitingcontent. We're live tweeting from our very own handle at GD4Employers and Smashfly's handle at Smashfly. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers, Elise Mayer, Director of Content at Smashfly, and Lauren McNiff, Senior Product Programs Manager at Glassdoor. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Lauren here. It's a pleasure to be here today. As Sydney mentioned, I am the Senior Marketing Manager at Glassdoor, where I've led our employer engagement programs for just about 3 years. Having studied marketing in college, I've been fortunate to continue to practice marketing in the HR space for nearly 8 years. I'm so excited to be here speaking about this topic because as a marketer, I love to map content according to stages in the buyer's journey in my case. So this is a great parallel topic to starting to map content according to the candidate journey. So thank you for having me.
And hi everyone, I'm Elise Mayer. I'm from Smashfly. So ditto to Lauren about being super excited about talking on this topic. Content is my passion, both personally as a writer and a reader, and professionally as the Director of Content at Smashfly. I started off as a journalism major in college and then spent a little more than 5 years leading social media and content strategy at a few different marketing agencies. And I've definitely found a new interest and purpose in blending the worlds of marketing and talent acquisition for the last 2.5 years at Smashfly. So this stuff is super refreshing, and content can be so powerful, and it's different every single day. So I hope you guys are all really excited and you feel the same either already or after this webinar, which is why we're here today. So we're focusing on content, the recruiting funnel, and the candidate journey. And I bet if I asked every person on this webinar to define those 3 concepts and how they work together, we'd likely all come up with a different answer. So let's start with a little bit of a reality check because I know that Smashfly and Glassdoor see content throughout the candidate journey a little bit differently. And this is why I love joining forces with Glassdoor, and I'm excited to talk about this with Lauren. So let's look at how we see it. Content is a marketer's term. So most of us look at content as a video or a blog, an infographic, or an ebook. But people don't get up and say, I'm going to look at some content today. Realistically, to everyone else in the world, content is really everything. We are a massive generation of consumers, constantly with a screen in front of our faces. And a recent study from Deloitte says that on average, Americans look at their phones 46 different times per day. That's not even an iPad or TV or looking on a desktop or reading in between your work projects. So we're constantly consuming things. And in this world, we have to think broadly about what content is. It's thinking beyond words on a page or a blog post. It's really anything a person is willing to consume in any way. So if you look at some of these examples, a user-generated travel guide on TripAdvisor, a photo and a caption on Instagram, a BuzzFeed quiz that tells you who your dog would sound like. And FYI, I did take this quiz. My dog is an English bulldog, and apparently she would sound like Michael Caine, which kudos to BuzzFeed. I think that's pretty spot on. So thinking big and broadly when it comes to content for recruiting is incredibly important. It will set you apart, and it will differentiate your brand. But with endless possibilities in this universe of stuff and noise, it's really hard to drill down on where to start, what to say, and how to deliver it. So traditionally, marketers have started with a funnel that looks like this. Maps content and messaging and channels to different stages, from awareness all the way to purchase. These stages segment where people are in their decision making, whether to buy a product or a service, or in our case, to apply for a job. So talent acquisition followed suit, and you've likely seen this type of recruiting funnel somewhere. It's very straightforward, and it's very linear. And people do follow stages of interaction in this type of progression because you can't apply for a job unless you're aware that the job or the company exists. And you can't be interested unless you're aware, of the brand as well. So people definitely follow these stages in a path from awareness to hire or decision. But unfortunately, I think where we've gone wrong as marketers and recruitment marketers is deeming certain channels to these specific stages, meaning social media is purely awareness or email is purely conversion. We have to break down the notion that people use channels similarly in every stage of their decision making, because the truth is they don't. And that's why we've mapped the candidate journey looking like this. So as people move from awareness to interest and so on, they use multiple channels to learn and make decisions. And they likely return to those same channels more than once. So I'm sure you guys have seen a bunch of different stats on the average number of touch points that candidates use. And Smashfly data says on an average, candidates use 15 different touch points just before applying. And there are even more after apply. So really, while the stages of awareness to selection to hire are linear, every candidate's path is different, meaning the candidate journey looks more like this chaotic, swiggle of lines than the linear funnel you saw on the previous page. The candidate journey is not linear. And I think that's kind of a fresh message today in talent acquisition and employer branding, and it's really how we need to think about content. So if we compare how the funnel and the journey looks, there's two main takeaways. And it's really time to flip how we look at content creation. So the funnel, that linear, straightforward path from awareness to hire, the funnel dictates your message. What questions and answers do you have to provide for each stage in the journey? How can you provide value at each stage? What are people looking for? What do you want to reveal about your brand at every single stage? So the funnel dictates the message. Now the journey, every candidate's separate and unique journey, that dictates the channels. Forget about what you think about where each channel fits in the candidate journey. A person could become aware of your company at a recruiting event and then need 10 more touch points to apply. So that recruiting event is the first point of awareness. That takes a different message than, let's say, a veteran who is fully aware of your brand, has done a lot of research, but goes into that veteran career fair, meets a hiring manager who, let's say, was an Army veteran as well, and they make that decision in that moment to apply. That's a much different message. So when it comes to content creation, one size fits all across the funnel is really one size fits none. To be bold and personalized and useful to candidates, we really have to think about crafting and curating content for every single stage in the candidate journey across all of these channels. And that sounds like a lot, but again, me and Lauren are going to get into it, and hopefully it will be less overwhelming.
Agreed, Elise, and I'll just jump in here that this is exactly how we think of in the marketing realm. Is we know there's a funnel, we love funnels in marketing, but when it comes to candidates or buyers going through a funnel, we know there's no right or wrong way to do it. So we're always thinking about what's the right content to the right person at the right time. And really what we have to think about, to your point, is how can we reuse and create content that applies across the funnel? Maybe it's small tweaks or just a slightly different image even to help us reuse that content effectively. So I'm really excited to get into the details about how we can do that.
Totally. I love that idea of repurposing as well, and we'll touch on that upcoming. So the first message is don't panic. We have your back, and this is what this webinar is for. So let's really dive into what people want at each stage and how we can create it and deliver it. So the awareness stage. I like to look at awareness as that aha moment. It's the point where people realize your organization as a potential employer, and that's different than knowing your brand as what it sells. It's really different, and there's a different message in talking to a candidate audience than a marketing or consumer audience. Awareness can also be a point where you're actually re-peaking them. So the person may already know about your brand, but the timing is right to need you as an employer. So that awareness becomes heightened. So there's really two routes there for awareness. And going off this Glassdoor stat, we love Glassdoor stats. I use them a ton in our content, and they're really great across different job seeker stats and employer stats. But at Smashlight, we talk a lot about the idea of your universe of talent. And that's every potential person you would want to reach to work for your company. And that's a lot of people. But realistically, only around 12% of people are actively looking for a job at any time. So meaning they really need employment, they're desperately searching job boards, they're ready to apply today. The other 88% are similar to Glassdoor's stat about this 86%, are open to a better opportunity. And I see a huge difference between an opportunity seeker and a job seeker. And I think far too often in talent acquisition, we're going after the job seekers with content. So job ads, or tweeting out job recs, or emailing personalized job recommendations. But it's all focused on the job. And we forget about the rest of the talent pool who are really just open to that opportunity. And content in this stage really can bridge the gap between an opportunity seeker and making a decision. So there's 3 goals of content in this stage. Expanding your reach. That's simple. Getting more eyeballs on what you put out there. Number 2, optimizing your exposure. That's really getting in front of the right people with the right topics on the right channel. And that's going to take testing. It's going to take different types of content and learning what works and what doesn't. And the 3rd is getting attention. And if there's one thing I care the most about in content is really trying to push the limit and not be boring. So I always hold myself to the would I test. And that's, would I click on this? Would I care about this headline? Would I read more than a sentence? And if I honestly know as a consumer and as a writer and as a reader and someone who's constantly on social media, if I don't care about it and I don't like it, I don't think anyone else will. And I've really used that as a quality check. And would I do it? And if I don't publish it. So Lauren, I'm interested in what you think about kind of these 3 main goals of awareness content.
I can't agree more, and I really love the last one about getting attention. And what I would add to that is when you're trying to, get attention and expand your reach, I think it's important and a good reminder for people to be as human as possible. For example, maybe when you're coming up with social campaigns or pieces of collateral, are you using iStock photography every time or kind of cheesy images, or are you using like real pictures of your workplace, your interactions with customers, internal events? I think that's really what makes the difference is people want to know that on the other end there's a person. They're interacting with a team, real people as opposed to robots, machines. I always think that's an important thing to think about at the awareness stage. Be real, be you. Be authentic, and really that will set you apart for all the stages to come.
Totally, and a really good point there is that we have really informed candidates and people. They can call BS on if something isn't real or if it's a stock photo. We live every day on digital media, and then that's a really great point because people know and candidates know when something seems fake. So what else do people want to know at this stage? I think it's really important to frame your content message around what people actually want to know and not what you want to tell them. And there's actually a really fine line between that, and it takes research. You can't just guess. You really have to ask questions, talk to people in your organization, do competitive research, survey your new hires, read industry reports. You really have to do your research in figuring out what people want to know versus what you want to say. So some examples are, who are you as a company? Do not use a boilerplate. Write about it, to Lauren's point, in a human way. How would you talk to your friend or your brother-in-law or your sister explaining what you do as a company? It's not a boilerplate. What's your purpose? What do you do to make lives better? Why care? Why me? And what's in it for me, this last bullet, should really be number one. Why click? Why read? Why watch? Why are you different than any other employer? So often we see companies about us and they sound so similar, and the employer brand messages sound so similar. Candidates see this. They understand. So really take the time to say, why would someone consume this? And if you have a compelling reason, a great headline, a human image that's of real employees, an interesting delivery method, you're going to win out over your competitors. And so setting up you guys can see this framework of how this is going to go through each stage. And I just want to mention a little bit about curation. So you can either create content yourself or you can curate it. And curate it in the marketing world is fair game. People are creating content all the time and they want it to be shared and used and sourced. Use that to your benefit. Not everything has to be created from scratch. And believe me, as a director of content that writes over 100 blogs a year, my biggest saving grace is being able to rely on curation and syndication and using other sources of content, because there's no way we could do it all ourselves. So some things that you can jump in on here. Thought leadership with trends and stats. Look at your industry publications, your industry reports. Look at awards or lists like Glassdoor's best places to work. If you're on these lists and a third party is giving you that credibility. Social campaigns or hashtags, university hashtags. Try to find the conversations that you can jump in on, because you don't always have to have an original idea. Sometimes to supplement content, you can jump in and use other people's, and you definitely should in getting started. So let's take a look at what some of your peers are doing right now, some real-world examples. GE. This is an actual screenshot from my phone on Instagram that I was targeted for the Balance the Equation. Now, I can't say I'm not an engineer. I'm in marketing. But GE created an omni-channel campaign from their TV spot to social media to email campaigns to bring awareness to their initiative of hiring 20,000 women in STEM positions by 2020. And so with filters, they're using really interesting hashtags, emojis, a great campaign and a great message to target women on the channels they use, which is Instagram. So I thought this was a really relevant example and a great way of, everyone knows GE, but this is making you aware of their employer brand and a route for potential work in their company. This other quick example is about SEO. And this is kind of embarrassing for me to admit, but I didn't really get SEO until about a year and a half ago. And I'm still not an expert, but I received some really great advice, and it's very simple. It's do less. So don't overthink SEO and always think with the audience in mind. If you were writing an article and you were trying to find that article, what would you type into Google? That should be your keyword. Think about the user in mind and don't come up with some complicated, complex keyword or something, again, that you want to rank for. It has to be about what people are searching. And so you can see here, someone typing in recruiting events. You can see that Lockheed Martin and Ford Motor Company come up. This is someone starting on Google. They don't even know what they're looking for. They're just looking for events. And these two companies come up number 1 and number 2. Real estate on Google is invaluable. So there's lots more on SEO, but it's really something to think about, and awareness is getting an SEO plan and really optimizing your metadata, your titles, and your URLs to come up in search, because we all know that 90% of searches start on Google. So moving on to the consideration stage, we call this the game changer stage. And this means that with the right stories and message, you can change someone's perception about your company. An emotional employee story, an amazing volunteer program, or a useful blog post has the power to make someone rethink, should I work here? So this is really a powerful stage that can change people's opinions. And I think this next stat, and I'm sure Lauren can talk a little bit more about, Glassdoor's credibility with candidates, but 69% of job seekers would not take a job for a company with a bad reputation. And I recently read this scenario at Boston University of a focus group of some graduate students. And they put a job rec with the brand name and the job title on the screen in the class, and they asked how many of these students would apply for this job with no other information. More than half of the students raised their hand. He takes down the job rec, puts up Glassdoor and this company's reviews on Glassdoor, and he lets people read through it for a minute. You can clearly see that there's a less than 3.0 general rating. There's some bad headlines right away. The CEO isn't rated highly. So he asked again, how many of you guys would now apply to this job? Not one hand went up. So this is a really clear indication of the power of not just sites like Glassdoor and third-party reviews, but of peers and what peer reviews and recommendations mean to candidates in this world. So to drive consideration, you have to monitor your own brand internally, but you have to monitor it externally. So Lauren, I'm sure you have a perspective on this story and the influence of, of Glassdoor and what you're seeing with peer reviews.
Absolutely. And for those people on the phone who have a Glassdoor profile or just learning about it and have a score around the 3.0 range, don't worry, don't fret. This is not, telling you you'll have the same experience. But really what we see is that employers who do have bad reviews from time to time or get bad press, it's less about that but more about your employer response. So what are your execs saying? How are you covering and addressing the feedback publicly or on your Glassdoor site? And we see that of these 69 job seekers who wouldn't want to work for a company with a bad reputation, that number goes down considerably when they see an employer response, acknowledging, hey, yeah, thank you for sharing that feedback. Maybe we do have some work to do in this area, or we're sorry you had that experience. We're working on it. Your feedback is valuable. So I don't want this to seem as a daunting stat, but it really should be more inspirational that employee reviews are only one side of the equation. So your employer respective and kind of how you handle these situations with poise and professionalism, that's really what you have to think about.
Totally. And I think that this is a great segue into the next slide about what people want to know at this stage. And when you're trying to change people's minds, it has to be more about a job or a job title. And I mean, I love the words that you use, poise and professionalism and being human. And it goes down to two things for me in this stage, people and purpose. They're not really considering a job title at this point. They're considering your company. Do I want to go through with it? Do I want to go through another 30-minute application process? So think about what people want to know. Highlight projects. Highlight the type of people that work at your company. What does your company do within the community? Really think about, powerful messages that go beyond the job. And so what does content look like in this stage? I think that a few of my favorites that, you can really push the bar, I love project highlights. I mean, as a marketer, if I went to someone's site and saw what the marketing team did as a campaign and almost did a case study on themselves, I would love that. It shows the work, and it puts purpose behind a job title like Director of Content. Well, what does that look like? What type of work are you guys doing that's different? I also love quizzes, and we'll see an example of this in a little bit. But people love quizzes. BuzzFeed has capitalized on, I grew up in the era of taking quizzes in magazines and using a pen. But now BuzzFeed quizzes are all over the place, and people are taking them on wacky topics. So think about how quizzes could really help find fit in the job process. And
I
Lauren,
love that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to jump in here that I agree. I think this is kind of the most exciting thing where you can highlight, to Elise's point, some of the unique projects or hiring programs that you have to offer. Some of the ideas that come to mind are, say you're trying to hire more veterans or military spouses, or maybe you have a big diversity push to hire more women in engineering, or maybe you're a company who's committed to hiring people without degrees or disabled workers, or maybe even you're open to hiring ex-offenders trying to get back on their feet. I think you can use your social channels, your company blog, infographics about your hiring. All of this is a good way to showcase some of those unique programs. And on the next slide, we have a couple examples of some companies doing just that and doing it pretty well. One of the companies I want to highlight is Verizon. They're actually one of our clients, and they've been rated the #1 military employment program by the Military Times. And they didn't do that overnight, obviously. This took some work, but what really started as an idea by someone on their talent acquisition team to reach a new talent source. They partnered up with some local and national military groups such as Hiring Our Heroes to say, all right, what are these military candidates looking for after their service period? What are their spouses looking for while their spouse might be serving abroad? And they really kind of built this from the ground up. And one of the things I think they're doing really unique is they have their own microsite sort of dedicated to militaries. They have videos. They offer a free skills assessment and matcher. They're able to your point, Elise, give candidates sort of a quiz about what their skills were, what their experience was in the military, and at the end of the quiz, it will kind of predict what jobs at Verizon might be a good fit based on their experience. I just think that's so awesome. And one other thing they have is they allow candidates who are interested to schedule a conversation with one of Verizon's military recruiters. Say they're a little bit apprehensive or need some more information or just want more info on how to get started. They kind of have this whole microsite and whole community that's helping them. And I think this is a really good example of how to make this sort of special group feel special and get the information they need.
Yeah, I think that's a seriously stellar example. I mean, when you think about military employers, you don't immediately think Verizon. My husband's actually a military veteran, and he goes right to defense or Boeing or Lockheed Martin, and you don't think about Verizon. So having this content is a huge game changer. Going back to that consideration stage, that's huge. If a veteran sees this and how much effort they put into it, that really can change someone's mind about going with Verizon. And one of Smashfly's customers, Intel, they have a very public goal of reaching equal representation among its employees by 2020 for a diversity initiative. And this pledge clearly became much more than words. It was reflected in its marketing, its content, and it really became a mission. And so on Intel's career site, they have a diversity landing page and tons of content and diversity reports, employee testimonials, stats. So really proving that it's beyond words, it's a mission, it's something that they live, it's something that they strive for, it's something that they report on and they research, and it's really transparent. And I think that delivering on some of your hiring initiatives like campus or veteran or diversity, not just saying it, but actually showing the action behind it is extremely important. And Intel, I just saw launch that they're going to hit their goal 2 years early. So it's definitely paid off. And being transparent and educating people on this, and they're really close to hitting their goal. So back to the quiz for Nestle Purina on the next example. This is a really creative and timely idea from Nestle Purina. When you're thinking of a pet food brand, you're likely not sure of what route you want to go in as a college student. You're likely maybe not thinking about Nestle Purina right off the bat. But I love the theme of fit here. I love having a sense of career path and trying to find what jobs are open, because this is an age and a time where you don't really know. So it's extremely useful. It's about the candidate, and it has that fit and purpose theme, which is a great segue into our next stage, which is driving interest and nurture, which is really all about fit. So when we're looking at the interest stage, it's really hard because a person can gain interest over time, but they can also lose interest. So great relationships require nurturing. And that's why this stage is really pivotal at the right time with the right message and gaining trust. And I think that it's really important to point out that Smashfly does a Fortune 500 report card every single year. And last year we found that less than half of organizations capture leads through a talent network to nurture at all. They're only capturing applicants. So that's a huge opportunity for people to actually gauge interest and not make everyone apply. And an even bigger whopper, and it like pains my heart, but only 1% of the Fortune 500 send content other than jobs. And as you've been hearing Lauren and I talk, so much of this upfront stages is not about the job. It's about people and fit and purpose and mission and brand. So how can you build a relationship and find fit if you're only marketing job titles and job descriptions? And the answer is you can't. So let's take a look at what you can message and what you can create outside of the job in this stage. In the interest and nurture stage, you want to compel people to act. We know that millennials are changing jobs every 3 years, and they're also working from age 22 to age 65 plus, which basically gives employers 10 plus chances throughout their life to turn that person into a hire. If it's the right talent, it's not one and done. You really have to think long term about your relationship with your leads and your candidates. You don't just get one shot, and that's really promising. So really think about, how will the candidate grow? Growth is huge for retention and for consideration and for why people choose jobs over the other. What's your company culture really like? This goes back to earlier about being human. Let your employees speak for themselves. Let them talk in their own words. Don't can responses for them. People will know, and they'll be able to know what's real and what's fake. And then I also love, jobs that fitting, the background and my experience. That's personalization. Don't send someone who's interested in marketing a bunch of engineering jobs. They're likely going to unsubscribe. So moving into kind of what this looks like, and I've mentioned some of this, like personalized job alerts or maybe a monthly newsletter. You have to really figure out what's going to drive action, because people in the interest stage, they're exactly that. They're interested, but you haven't fully convinced them yet. Think about what you get from Target or Amazon. You get those emails of, okay, you looked at this. I know that you like it. I know it's a product that you want, but we're not set yet. And so they continue to nurture it. It's the same thing with a job. I mean, you can drive a person who has a bad day, or their leader leaves, or there's layoffs at the company. If there's a right time to pique that interest, it really could compel action for someone to apply. We have some great examples of this, and I'm really excited to share this one from GE. So another really big public campaign, and I'm not sure how many of you guys have seen the Millie Dresselhaus video from GE about women in engineering and women in STEM roles. And so GE's marketing basically ran this TV spot, and of course the talent acquisition team needed to actually capitalize on that, turning marketing into leads and actually capitalizing on women interested in this campaign. So they set up a talent network forum with women who actually work in STEM positions in GE with personalized messages. You can see that the video is playable right on the talent network forum, and it's a really clear path of messaging. It makes sense. It's personalized. You can see women working there. I mean, I'm not even in engineering, and I want to sign up for this. I just want to see what else GE is going to do. And what they did do is that for the more than 500 women that signed up to the talent network, they then sent a series of emails that showcased real female rock stars at GE who work in these types of roles, talking about their life and their job. After 48 hours, GE saw a 76% open rate, a 10% click-through rate, and a 2% apply rate. And just for industry standards, 22% is an industry standard for an open rate, and GE got 76%. So personalized messaging and a human touch goes a really long way. Moving on to Thermo Fisher, they have an amazing What Story Will You Tell campaign. And if you have not seen one of these videos, Google it now. This company created a series of powerfully transparent videos of employees sharing their stories. So whether it's a dad struggling with a child's illness or a recent grad traveling the world to live out her dream, they're really inspirational. They're done extremely well, and you want to do big things for this company after you watch that. And I feel like there's no bigger interest-generating win than having a candidate feel empowered. So one more quick example on the interest stage until I hand it over to Lauren to talk about apply and post-apply. Third-party reviews. We've been talking a lot about that, and this is content. even though you haven't created it, your users and your employees and your candidates have. And so thinking big and broad, you can use this stuff from Glassdoor. We've seen CDW, who has a really high CEO approval rating and really wonderful Glassdoor reviews, use these in their nurture emails. So when they get someone signed up for their talent network, they'll start nurturing them with employees that maybe have worked in the same field and have written great reviews about the company. I mean, talk about hearing directly from an employee and seeing that in your inbox instead of a list of job recs. That's super powerful. And Lauren, I know that you have opinions on this too, because working for Glassdoor, you're seeing this stuff work all the time.
Absolutely. You know, obviously this is an example very near and dear to my heart, and I agree that I think behind opinions of friends and family, employee reviews and actual feedback from the people working at that company is the second most important opinion that matters when these companies are thinking about where to work. So any chance you have as an employer to highlight real employee feedback and kind of also share your employer perspective really can make a big difference. So some of the examples here, like this Life at Kohl's. You know, a lot of us know Kohl's as a consumer. You know, maybe you buy things at Kohl's, but how often do you think about it as an employer? What's really cool is you can use Glassdoor to kind of highlight what is life at Kohl's really like. So not only can job seekers be looking for a job, they get real access into other exciting things at Kohl's. So you can see in the screenshot, they're able to see right from this window a Why Work For Us section where you could highlight videos or blogs or employee stories like the Thermo Fisher. You can see the rating, company benefits, reviews. So it really just helps candidates who are interested get everything they need kind of in one space. And another exciting thing that you can do, or we encourage candidates to do, is to sign up for job alerts or choose to follow companies that they may be interested. So this is a great kind of venue for you as an employer to share company updates, share company videos, because to Elisa's point, they might not be ready just yet, but maybe there's a campaign or something that really reaches their heartstrings and they want to follow your company. And maybe a few months from now, after getting a few alerts or seeing what you've been up to, there will be that right job and they'll be ready to apply, which to Elisa's point leads us right to the next segment here around application. So the application stage is really, I would say the most excited. They're aware of your company, they've considered what makes your company unique, the benefits that you offer, and they're ready to submit their application. And we know from our research that 83% of employees and job seekers will likely be looking at company reviews and ratings before submitting. So those days of kind of shotgun applications, it still happens. We're not going to pretend it doesn't, but those days are kind of dwindling because candidates know it's important to be informed. It's a really big decision, one of the most important decisions you make in life, where you're going to work and where you'll accept a job opportunity. So once they've applied, what are they hoping to know? It's not just not just how much do I like this job description, but candidates are really thinking about how well does my experience match? How might I stand out from other applicants? What are they looking for? What do I have that's even bigger and better than the job description? How do the salary and benefits compare to the positions I'm applying for? And I can speak from my own experience finding a job. There's some companies that I applied to and I was pretty excited, but then there's some that when I see the mission and I really read the description, I feel elated. Like I can't wait to hear back from that company. And I think this is where, these questions and providing materials really make a difference. And we've surveyed our users many, many times, and when it comes to what they're looking for at this stage, what they're comparing your company and your opportunity versus another, they're looking, not surprisingly, first at salary. So what can they expect to receive? On Glassdoor, there is salary information, so they have a lot of that available to them, but maybe you've posted a range or it's available on the job description. But they're also looking Second in line, benefits. What does your company offer? Will they get a good health care package? Will they get vision? Will they get unlimited PTO? And all of this, again, subtle plug, you can advertise on your Glassdoor profile. They're also looking at basic company info. Where are you located? How many employees do you have? But most importantly, I think they're really evaluating your company mission, your values, why your company is an exciting place to work. So again, we're going to say it, being as human as possible. What is your mission? How are you helping people? How are you making the world a better place? All of this stuff really matters at this application stage and really helping to get the candidates as excited about your opportunity as they can be. Which leads us to what you should be sharing. There's obviously the basics, so a good dynamic job description that's gender neutral, that uses SEO keywords like Elise mentioned earlier, but there's some not so obvious things that you could be sharing as part of this. So some of the pieces that I think is pretty cool is maybe you have an automatic email that gets delivered once someone completes an application. Does it just say thank you for submission, we'll be in touch? Is there a way that you could add some content like, hey, thanks for applying. See an inside look into our culture. Maybe there's a video. Maybe there's a cool employee story blog that you could be sharing. Maybe there's a link back to sort of a dedicated page in their career site, going back to that Verizon example. Maybe it's a job that's open to veteran hiring. Maybe you can point them back there. And I think one of the most unique ones that you could be sharing is tips right off the bat for preparing for an interview. So we know as candidates, interviewing is a little bit nerve-wracking, so being able to proactively say, hey, here's what it's like to interview here, here's our typical process, here's some tips and best practices, you can instantly kind of give them the tools they need to be successful and know what's coming up when they hear from you.
Yeah, I think that's so critical in this stage, Lauren. I feel like from the candidate, the recent Candy report, only 40% of recruiters are required to follow up with candidates at all. And that's only required. That's not even how many actually do. So if I have one word of advice is do not ghost your candidates. I mean, let them into your process. Set the expectation. Be transparent. And if you're going to do that, deliver on those promises. This is really where automation can come in. I love Lauren's example of personalizing an automatic email that goes back after apply, or an automatic email reminder, which is something that Smashfly does for our customers. After 72 hours, if they've got through halfway, we give them kind of a fun little prompt of, hey, are you missing something? Like, go back to this. We've seen huge results where automation can be your best friend, and it doesn't have to sound like a robot. You can personalize it. The automation is the delivery mechanism, but you can personalize the words and make it sound a lot more interesting. And so going into the first example here about setting expectations, this is another great example from Intel. And they have a process and tips page on their career site to set those expectations. And we're seeing a lot more of this across companies with specific content and blog posts or videos with employees walking candidates through their expectations or their experience, or messaging on the career site. The big thing here is that you have to hold yourself accountable. And if you're going to outline your process and your expectations, you have to be able to deliver, because it looks so bad on your brand to promise to go through this process and then you don't. So I really think it's great to be transparent to candidates, and it also helps hold yourselves to a higher bar in terms of closing that loop.
I love that. And another example that I think is just super cool and totally human is one of our clients, ATB Financial. So they actually have a page that you can link, that they linked from their careers page, that is basically offering people to meet their recruiters. We call this AKA a recruiter profile. So going back to applying, you don't really know what's going to happen next, and you don't know who might be in contact with you, but at ATB, you do. They have a whole page outlining all their recruiters with pictures, a link to email them. It shows some kind of their fun facts, their hobbies, a little bit of their background, and I just think this brings total transparency to the process and kind of gets people excited. Like, who will I hear from, or who do I think I might have a connection with, or might have some similar hobbies that I could reach out to and learn more about the application process or the culture at ATB. And I just think this is a really fun and really easy way to showcase what it's like to work for and who they would anticipate hearing from after their submission.
Yeah, I love this example, and it's honestly pretty low-hanging fruit that I don't see very often. And realistically, recruiters can be candidates' biggest champions. So this is great to give that person a face to the name and kind of introduce them. I think that this is something that a lot of companies could really easily implement.
Totally agree. And once the application process happens, now you could say is the real fun part. You've had them apply, and now it's time for mutual selection. So you might be wondering, oh my goodness, what kind of content is necessary here? Our hands are full with interviewing and scheduling with our hiring managers, but there really is a lot you can be doing. And in the mind of our sales team, I always hear this expression, so I like to kind of mention it here, is ABS, short for always be selling. So this is really the part of the process where you are in control. The ball is in your court to follow up with these candidates, get them in the door, and really confirm with them if you are who you say you are, on your blog, on your social channels. This is really a great way, it is a meet and greet and it is an interview, but this is really about making sure the fit is mutual and that you're the right fit for one another. So to level set, we like to kind of point out what candidates are thinking of when applying and coming in for an interview. They want to be informed. Those days of kind of sloppy, applying in a sloppy manner and shotgunning applications, they're kind of done with that. They know that they want to be informed. They know it's important to come to an interview prepared. They're going to have done their research on your culture. They're going to look into your mission. They're going to check out your recent press releases. They're going to have questions about your business model, future growth, what it's like, the good and the bad about working at your company. So this is the kind of thing we have to think about when preparing content for this stage.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes maybe the sound of informed candidates might be scary and you don't want them to know everything, but realistically, you want informed candidates. You want the people that you're talking to be able to screen themselves in or out because it helps you find the right fit. So if you're being open and you're giving them all the information up front and they're not having it, they don't feel like it's the right fit, great, because you likely would have figured that out too late anyways in the process. So inform your candidates, be useful to them, be transparent. It's going to help you screen out people that aren't the right fit anyways. So I'm all for the more information, the better.
Exactly. And when it comes to what are they thinking about, what do they want to know, what do they expect or hope that you will provide, and I think the most important ones on this list to point out is who are they interviewing with and when? What's the timeline? Is it a 2-hour interview? Will they meet with 2 people, 4 people? What teams will those members be on? Do you give them an interview guide upon arrival, even just a copy of their agenda? These are little things that can be easy to put together but can make all the difference in helping that person feel most comfortable and helping to reduce some of the nerves around coming in. Will they enjoy the physical environment? Something easy we do that takes all of 5-10 minutes at Glassdoor is we give them a tour. We show them the cafeteria, we walk them around the different departments, we show them our little kayak and game room. So easy things like that can give them a view that maybe they had only seen on a video or on your social channels, but make them feel more comfortable. And I think the biggest one that's most important is how will they contribute and how will they grow at your organization? So have some stories prepared ahead of time or send them before they come in of maybe employee success stories, maybe how someone in a similar role started as an intern and a few years later is now a manager managing a team. Stuff like that really helps build credibility and helps them get excited. And yeah, I think we can go on to the next one too. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm getting excited. When it comes to actually What content to prepare. I mentioned a couple of these, interview tips ahead of time, an interview prep sheet. Before they come in, give them some heads up. Give them a few days notice. Let them know who they'll be meeting with, tips and how the flow will go. Give them maybe some thought starter ideas or things that they might want to ask about in the interview. One thing that's super important, especially at Glassdoor, being that we are a suburb of located in a suburb of San Francisco, is even how to get to the office for the interview. We give our candidates ahead of time the ferry schedule, the bus schedule, links to Uber or Lyft should they not have their own car. So stuff like this that's seemingly obvious can make a big difference and help them feel more comfortable. Like, oh, okay, they notice I might not have a car, I might not be able to get there, but they're doing what they can to enable me to be on time and be prepared. And one thing that I think is important too is don't wait until they've already onboarded and hired to ask them for a review. Ask them right after they leave as a thank you for coming in to please leave a review on Glassdoor about the interview process. How difficult was it? What were the questions that we asked? How would they rank their experience, positive or negative? So this really kind of builds this feedback loop that you can use as a recruiting team, your hiring managers can use to improve their techniques, and really helps you it helps the candidate feel like they have a voice and that you care about what they have to say. All right. So we have a couple exciting examples too of companies doing just that. And I mentioned about sort of preparing for interviews. We know it can be nerve-wracking. We know it can be overwhelming, especially for entry-level talent who doesn't have much interview experience. T-Mobile does a great job. They have a whole section of their website sharing tips, tricks, videos to prepare for the interview. And I just think this is super helpful. It helps reduce the stress, make sure that your candidates you're bringing in are prepared, and that your hiring managers have better conversations. So you as a recruiting team know pleasing your hiring manager is important, and this is one way to do it. Okay.
Yeah,
so
I think that's a really great. Oh, sorry, I was going to say, I think that's a really great example because could you imagine if you're in between two companies and someone gives you this and another company gives you nothing? It really empowers you and makes you feel like they want to succeed instead of maybe trying to trap you and trick you on interview questions. So I think it goes a long way for the brand to provide some of that useful information. I love this.
Perfect. So I'm going to kind of pivot now to hiring and onboarding. So they've made it, they've made commitment to you. They want to work at your company. You've extended an offer. For sake of time purposes, we're going to kind of skip over offer negotiation, maybe handling counter offers. That's an entirely different discussion. We could have a whole webinar on just that. But really, this is the important part where they've made a decision, and now it's super critical that you provide them with the materials they need so that their onboarding is smooth. They have the resources they need to start day one, week one, the first 30 days, and make sure that they're comfortable and have what they need to be successful. So what people are thinking about in this first stage is, yay, I got a new job. I'm excited. I can't wait to start and make an impact. But they're also thinking about the logistics. How will I be trained? Where do I go to make sure I have all my information around signing up for health benefits? What activities can I get in, join right off the bat? Some of the things we do at Glassdoor is we have a women's group. We have a fun committee. Stuff like that can help them feel part of the community immediately versus kind of feeling a little bit nervous and how they can contribute. Being able to share this information right off the bat can really make a difference. And when it comes to the content and actually what you should be sharing, what you should be delivering, there's a lot listed here, and some of which is probably basics. But some of the things I think we should point out is do you schedule a brief 30 minutes with someone on your HR team to just walk through how to sign up for benefits, how to submit a ticket with IT, how to find employee activities, like I mentioned, our women's group. How would I join something like that? The last one, I'm going to skip ahead, connection list. Who are the team members I need to meet with right away? Has the hiring manager helped schedule some of those meet and greets? Do they have a dedicated schedule printed out or sent in advance so that the employee can know, maybe do a little research ahead of time, who they'll be meeting with, what their function is? That helps them to maybe prepare some questions ahead of time, look at their background, and really, again, just feel comfortable. And Elise, did you have any? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in because I think that maybe talent acquisition maybe sometimes feels like, okay, I'm handing it over to HR. They have their standards. I think that this first 30 days and these materials are so pivotal in continuing that brand story. You want to have the same tone and voice. You want to have a brand feel. No one wants to, everyone has been on the first day of a job where it's not even like a nightmare, it's just nothing. It's just boring and no one's talking to you and you have all these boring documents to read. Again, like, use the would I test. Like, would I enjoy this? Would I like to read it? I love that you pointed out the connection list. I mean, have people talk to different people on their first day. No one wants to sit there and read a bunch of legalese or like formal documents. So really think and take it on yourselves to insert your employer brand in some of these materials. And we can see this on the next two examples. The final two.
Exactly. Final two examples. We could go another hour sharing even more examples, but one of the ones we want to call out is Sendero. So they use signs throughout their office to celebrate employee stories and encourage others to leave feedback. So again, and a great platform to leave feedback is Glassdoor. So as soon as someone signs on, or even their first week, their work anniversary, they're sending these automated emails like, hey, your feedback matters. Please take a few minutes and share it. This just really encourages employees to have a voice and really helps for future recruiting. So the more employee stories that you have, the better candidates, the more information candidates have when they're considering your company or taking the time to apply.
Yeah, and then the example on the right is from Smashfly, and it's funny because I recognize these. And with a company with a lot of remote employees, it's hard to introduce new people that are in the office. So when we have a new hire, we ask them all these fun questions and we spotlight them, and they send it to the entire team. And really what ends up happening is the new hire gets like a barrage of 70 like welcome emails. But on your first day, it spotlights the person. It makes them feel like they matter. It introduces new people, and it helps remote employees learn the faces and the names of new people that are in the office. So I love this kind of welcome Q&A for new hires. So I know we're almost at the end. I don't know, Lauren, if you have some final words. I just had a few things to leave you with before we can maybe get to one or two questions. But the truth is, building this stuff out takes time. Believe me, I've been in content for a long time, and I know the manpower that it takes. It takes insight. It takes a solid understanding. It takes resources. But this is why we got into recruiting, right? We want to change people's minds. We want to do something different. And I really think that content has a strong, strong impact on that. So start small. And it's fun. It matters. It pushes you outside of your comfort zone. This is why I'm still in content 8 years later. So my parting words would be surprise yourself and surprise your audience. If you wouldn't read it, laugh at it, enjoy it, click on it, or find it useful, don't publish it. Publish content that you love and that you really think your readers are going to love. And those are my parting words.
I love it, and I couldn't agree more. I think my parting words we may have mentioned earlier is start simple. And start internally. So I always like to say, you've got a lot of great hires already working at your company. Maybe you could kind of pinpoint someone who started maybe 30, 60, or 90 days ago. Schedule an informational interview. Ask them, how did they become aware of this opportunity in the first place? What were the factors that put them over the edge and decide your company was the one for them? What made it easier? What could have been provided that they wish they had? Maybe even just doing a few of those, you can identify some quick wins. And of course, look at your Glassdoor reviews. Look at how candidates have rated your interview process. Even look at reviews from former employees. What did they like? What didn't they like? And you can use those as a way to spot those quick wins and then kind of build a plan around that.
And unfortunately, we are coming up on our time, so we're not going to have time to get to questions. We're going to round up all of the questions that all of you asked. You asked some great questions in a blog post, and you can find it at glassdoorforemployers.com. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Elise and Lauren, for sharing all these interesting insights. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, guys.